Hey fellow engineers, it's me, Mario, and as promised, here's my first weekly video of this new cycle of my YouTube channel. Today we're gonna talk about Barrage Nation, and I would like to start with USA. First off, I thought about making a general video about all the nations, but it would be hard to do that without delving deep into each nations. So I won't do that. I will discuss each nation one by one, but at the start of each video I will talk about nation rankings and where the current nation I'm talking about stands into it. So right now here's my rankings for the Barrage Nations. First, France, Gap, USA and Italy. They're kinda similar to me in power level. Then there's a gap, Germany. Then there's a big gap, and there's Netherlands. So USA is right in the middle of the pack of the starting nations. It's pretty good, but it's a bit more narrow than France, for example. But I would talk about France in another video. I just wanted to start with USA because I think overall it's a very interesting nation. So let's start from weaknesses, shall we? The first weakness is one that people have been talking about a lot online, and I also have talked a lot about online, which is the third PH, the third powerhouse. This power is just pretty bad. So it gives you one advancement on the energy track whenever a drop passes by one of your powerhouses, but it should not be just after a production from that area of powerhouses. By that I mean that if I have a powerhouse right here and somebody else also got a powerhouse right there, if they produce through one of these two conduits, I won't get the energy, but I will get it, for example, if my powerhouse is down here and there's no dam over here and the water flows through it. This power is pretty bad for two different reasons. The first one is that it's very unreliable. You never know how much energy you can get. Yes, sometimes you can place sun drops so that they can give you energy, but it's pretty hard to do and to predict how that water would flow later on in the round if the drops you're placing are slow drops. And the second is that it's just underwhelming. Even if you knew where you could get those energy, it's not an amazing power to have. It's barely noticeable in most games. In some games it can become relevant just because it will get you through that little threshold of 6 energy installments to get 4 more points, or sometimes it can let you pass an opponent and get 2 or even 6 victory points for being second or first at the end of the round. But more often than not, it's just not that good. Also, being gatekept after the third powerhouse makes it very, very, very slow and not reliable and not strong enough in most games. So that's the first weakness. The other nation, most of the other nation have better powers. I would say that the Netherlands power is probably on par with USA. I think the Netherlands power can be a bit better, but most of the time it's just redundant. So powerhouses are not great for USA in general, just because the third one is not very good. The second weakness is the conduit line, which is just trash. Like, it can be good in the late game, of course, because it's just points, but unlocking it all to get like 12 points and 1 spin is not something you want to do most of the time. In particular, the second one is bad because 3 victory points are bad in the early game, and the fourth one is bad because it's just overall underwhelming. Like 1 spin and 2 victory points is way below average if you compare it with all the other nations, and by that point in the game it might be barely noticeable. So there's probably one fourth column income which is worse, which is Germany's fourth elevation, but overall it's just, this line is just very, very bad. So you don't want to go for a conduit rush ever, and most of the time you're not really a nation that wants to spit out a lot of conduits in the game. So this is probably the biggest weakness. The strength. The two lines of bases and elevations in particular are actually amazing. The elevation line is, I think, the best in the game. This line is just amazing. It does it all. You get one mech under the second one, which is very good because normally if you can double up on elevations on a base in the plains, then you need more gray mechs to keep on building up infrastructure and especially other elevations in the hills and in the mountains. This one is just bonkers. All the incomes that give 2 instant drops are very good in my opinion. So both USA, Germany, and Netherlands, that's not in this game, are pretty good for that. So this one is very good. And these two coupled together makes it so that USA are very incentivized to go for a lot of elevations as fast as they can in most games. So that's what I would say the most noticeable income track. But the other interesting one is the one under the basis one. So one spin, nothing to write home about. It's worse than both 1 mech and 3 coins. It's of course better than 3 victory points, but it's one of the worst second column incomes. But the 6 coins, oh boy, this income is very, very interesting. So I didn't list it in the weaknesses, but USA doesn't have a 3 coins income on the second column. This can be a problem, especially in the base game, because it makes it very hard to go for bases in red spots in the early game, which is something you want to do a lot of the time. Not always, for sure not always, but a lot of the time you want to do that while also purchasing spins and tiles. So there's that. But this problem is not as noticeable with the expansion thrown in, because with the Lee Water project you can get coins thanks to external works most of the time. So it's not that big of a weakness anymore, at least in my eyes. So that's why USA actually bumped up a few positions and it's now in the middle tier instead of in the low tier right now to me. And also the 6 coins income is amazing if you can go for a base rush. It's amazing in some games. When you have a 4th or 5th round scoring for tech tiles, for example, rushing bases is amazing with USA because you get the 6 credits, which means a free tech each round that you get this income, and that's pretty bonkers. It's amazing when you have loan agency thrown in the game, because it means that even later on in the game where most people would find problems abusing loan agency. So loan agency is just a good private building. If you don't know it, it's the private building that will let you get an external work for 1 engineer instead of 2, and spending 2 coins per mech required instead of actually ditching the mechs, which is amazing in most games. And the only problem is that most nations will struggle getting enough coins in the late game to get the more expensive works, like 2 elevations will cost you 8 coins, and all the points one will cost you between 10 and 12 coins, the late games ones. So most nations will struggle getting them thanks to loan agency, but USA, thanks to this amazing 6 coins income, can hammer loan agency even in the late game, where you probably have way less fight for it. Like in the early game, people would fight for loan agency, but in the late game, that becomes less of a problem. So this income is among what can make USA very good. So I would say, talking about general game plan and what's your favorite game plan in each game, I think most of the time with USA, when you pick USA, you should pick if you want to go for a lot of bases fast or if you want to go for a lot of elevations fast. In most games, you don't want to go for a lot of conduits fast, and you most definitely don't want to go for a lot of powerhouses. So USA is a bit rigid in what it likes. It likes a lot late game scoring for bases and elevations most of the time. It doesn't like games that incentivize early production with late game round bonuses that are not linked to building a lot, because USA almost always is gonna finish the two lines of bases and elevations, so it really wants to get rewarded for that. So any game plan that involves getting a lot of powerhouses or a lot of conduits won't work for it. But the choice is always very interesting between going for a lot of elevations or a lot of bases, and it depends a lot on the round bonuses. As I've said already, if you have a late game tech scoring, going for a lot of bases makes sense. If you have a good hunch that you can compete for national contracts, it's not always clear from the start, but you can get an idea by the second round, I would say. Going for a lot of elevations is better. If you're forced to build in lower spaces, even in the hills or in the mountains, this income becomes really, really important and really reliable to get water into your lower dams. So going for elevations early is a good idea. There are some pairings like USA plus Fizzler that are a bit wonky, and they most of the time mean that you have to choose one of the two lines to complete, because you will actually go for some conduits and a lot of powerhouses, especially if you can get like USA plus Fizzler plus powerhouse 1 tile. You know you will finish all your powerhouses, so you know you will produce a lot, so you probably won't have time. And also powerhouse 1 taxes your gray max a lot, so you will probably not finish the elevation line. But other than this corner case scenario, I would say that the best game plan is the game plan that involves a lot of bases and a lot of elevations. I would say that's it. I want to keep these videos enough in depth, but still like pills that you can ingest at once. I don't know if that sounds good in English. It sounds better in Italian, but I want them to be fast and easy to understand, and also in depth enough. If you have questions, you can ask them in the comments. I will reply to them as soon as I can. I have a lot of more to say, a lot of examples, a lot of things to share, but again, I would like to keep it in depth, but still a bit general. So I would say that's it for this installment of the Barrage Nations, and see you next time with another one. All right, I'm done. See you soon. Mario's out. Bye-bye.